36 seasons ago, Battlefield City. It was that time again, the time of Ozara's attack. I, just like all the other great knights of your era, were still just children. This meant that there were others who stood in our place, the great knights of my era. There were 5 of them, and all of them were from Battlefield. One of them was my father. My family was in the ranks of great knights for generations. My father, my grandfather, and my grand-grandfather were all great knights in their time. I remember my father telling me the stories about my predecessors and their grand achievements. It inspired me. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be like my father. I wanted to become a great knight too. I wanted the glory and fame that came with that incredible title. But that wish soon changed as I've seen the terrors and destruction Ozara, the Grand Menace, brought with him. The day when Ozara struck, the entire city was filled with bugs of all kinds. Bugs from all of Castanean came here to witness the fall of Ozara. They came to see the great knights, the hope of Castana, defeat the eternal evil, bringing another 12 seasons of peace to the Castanean kingdom. But what they've seen instead was the unparalleled power Ozara possessed, and the terrifying scenes that came with being underprepared. The great knights were falling, one by one. Instead of going for the great knights as usual, this time Ozara went down to the center of Battlefield, where 1,000 observing bugs resided. This went against any plans the great knights may have had, and so chaos occurred. Dozens of innocent spectators died that day by Ozara's cruel wings. 2 of the great knights, a giant Weta named Giganti and a tiger beetle named Tigra, died in the chaos, but managed to hurt one of Ozara's wings. Even 2 of Staggeron's sons, 2 stag beetles, who were great knights themselves, died trying to save civilians and strike down the Grand Menace. This left only one great knight left. My father. When Ozara was approaching the Castanean tree, I remember my father, right before he left for the grand battle, saying to me, "Den, son, I may end up dead today, but my life is nothing compared to the life of thousands of bugs who live in Castana. I won't tell you how to live your life, but I will tell you that you should always help others whenever you can. You were born a dung beetle, the mightiest of all bugs. Use your gift, your incredible strength and endurance for a good cause, son. You don't have to become a great knight, but I won't lie to you. Nothing would make me prouder than if my own son continued the legacy of his family. See you later, son, and if not, farewell and take care." Those words flashed through my mind as I saw my father going one-on-one against the mighty Ozara. 1,000 spectators stood in silence, watching the astonishing brawl that was taking place right in front of them. The brawl that would decide their fate. My father was wearing a powerful Castanean black armor, along with a gigantic Ozara's feathered trident. The Grand Menace Ozara, whose left wing was wounded due to his prior encounter with Tigra and Giganti, menacingly stood before my father, with his wings widened, his evil eyes shining and his beak wide open. The battle did not last long, but it was an astounding sight to witness. Ozara's sharp beak pecked my father 12 times, but my father stood there, enduring it. The armor he was wearing was falling apart, and some of Ozara's attacks pierced through it, wounding my father. But he stood, he endured. He was awaiting for the moment, the right moment to strike Ozara once. A single attack. He knew that if he endured for long enough, eventually Ozara would slip. He would think he had already won. And my father was right, as Ozara, seeing my father in the state that he was in, wounded and barely standing, he paused his continuous attack. He paused for just a few moments to enjoy the sight of the last great knight who, he probably thought, was about to join the other 4 of his fallen comrades. and those few moments were just enough. They were exactly what my father was hoping for. And so, my father did it. He attacked with all his strength that he had left in him. He pierced Ozara's neck with his mighty trident. He stabbed through the demon's soul with the power of 1,000 beetles. And even with dozens of civilians gone, and 4 of the great knights being dead, everyone cheered as Ozara has once again fallen by the legs of Castanea's greatest warriors. Everyone cheered because those who have fallen have given their lives for the future of Castanea. Dozens died so that thousands could live. And just as Ozara let out his last breath, my father fell on his knees, for he too was mortally wounded in the brawl. The cheering has died down as more and more bugs realized that even my father, even the very hero who took the Grand Menace's life, was about to join the rest of the fallen knights. The crowd gathered around him, but they could do nothing except observe. The wounds were too severe, and the bleeding could not be stopped. Before he died, my father had given me one final look. The last memory I have of him alive was that moment. The moment when he found me in the crowd, when he found me, looked at me directly in the eyes and smiled. He smiled. He smiled because he did it. He won. He had saved Castanea. He had saved me. The next few days were weird. I remember crying a lot. I remember the kingdom celebrating. Dabir, the Master King, had held a party to celebrate the defeat of the Grand Menace, to celebrate another 12 seasons of peace, but also to commemorate those who have died. Staggeron, who at the time I looked at with nothing but respect, had personally visited me. He had given me his condolences for my loss, and he had promised that he will always be there for me, that he will do all he can to protect and support me. A promise that has kept me alive even to this day. As much as I hate Staggeron's guts now, I have to admit, he keeps his promises, no matter what. In those days I spent a lot of time thinking about everything that had happened, about Ozara, about the fallen knights, about my father, about the Castanean kingdom, and I came to a conclusion. My father was a hero. The great knights were all heroes, noble and brave bugs who sought nothing but justice and bringing peace to our world. At least that's how many young bugs perceived the great knights at that age. A perception that I later found out was nothing near the true nature of great knights. But at that point I had made a decision. I will continue my family's legacy. I will make my father proud, and I will do everything I can to avenge him by killing Ozara, as many times as I can. I spent the next season or two in solitary training. I trained every day, all day, until I fell down, unable to move due to the exhaustion. I lifted rocks, trained with spears, swords, and other weapons Staggeron was so kind to lend me. I was climbing up and down the Castanean tree, and when water or white dust fell from the sky, I stayed outside, enduring the coldness and the freezing winds. I think that Staggeron knew that I was going to follow my family's path of chasing the title of a great knight. He knew it, and he did all he could to make that come true. Things like supporting me with the weapons and equipment I needed for my training, as well as giving me advices from time to time, and I am still grateful to him for that. Even after everything that had happened between us, between me and Lucana. So I trained and kept on training until it was that time again. The time of the ultimate showdown. And this time it was special, because all 5 great knights have died fighting Ozara. Master King Dabir had decided that in this period between the Ozara's attacks, not 1 but 2 ultimate showdowns will be held. This was done in order to choose the next generation, the next great knights. The first one would be held now, and the next one would be held 6 seasons from now. and the strongest bugs would be awarded the title of Great Knights. So I decided to participate, to prove that I was ready to continue my family's legacy. I was so young and foolish. I arrived very early, about 8 hours before the first night of the showdown. I wanted to meet others. The truth is, besides Staggeron, I did not know anyone. I haven't really had any friends, and my mother passed away before I was even conscious enough to understand it. So my goal was to meet some bugs here, try to make some friends before we take it all out on one another in the arena. There were many different types of bugs, many of whom I have seen for the first time. It was truly a unique experience. I walked up to a few fellow beetles to try and start a conversation, but most of them just ignored me or stared at me threateningly in silence. I was about to give up on trying to meet a friend there when a big bug approached me. "Hey kid, I would advise you not to draw much attention to yourself." It was a big, beautiful atlas moth. "Hello." I was excited and nervous to finally talk with someone new. "Hi, I'm Matthias." "What do you go by?" Matthias asked me. "I'm Dan. Soon to be Great Knight Dan," I said with confidence and a little bit of delusion. Matthias laughed. "I assume it's your first time here, kid, correct?" "It is, I admit." "Well, I love your enthusiasm. Do you even know how things work here, Dan?" he asked me. Oh, of course I do. But in case I'm wrong, could you elaborate what you mean? I tried to play it off like I knew what I was doing, but it was obvious I was trying to act smart. "You're funny, Dan," Matthias said with a smile, but then made a serious face and got closer to me, saying, "But if you truly want to succeed, you'll have to change. You'll have to learn to adapt. But also learn when is the right time to act tough and when is the right time to admit your lack of knowledge. The truth is, then, you're just an uneducated child. You came here with the right mindset, you want to win. But you came here unprepared. You don't even know how the showdown functions, let alone how to act around here. Which is pretty disappointing considering who your father was." Matthias's words made me feel something new. They hurt, like nothing I have experienced before. They hurt, but I knew that Matthias spoke the truth. I knew he was right. You know who my father was?" I stupidly asked. "Of course, everyone does. Your father is one of Castana's biggest heroes." "No, I mean, you knew that I was his son." "Yes, and so did the others you've spoken to. And they all think the same thing. Dan, son of a great knight, is just a childish little dung beetle, trying to make friends and chit-chat here, like it's a kindergarten." Matthias was honest. This has left me speechless for a few moments. "So, Matthias, sir, can you please tell me how things work here?" I asked Matthias for help. He smiled and answered, "Gladly. You see, the showdown works in quite a unique way. You gotta challenge another bug for a brawl, or you need to be challenged by another bug. You can challenge anyone, and if you win, you advance to the next round. Cool concept, right?" "Yes, I see. But that's not all, Dan. Listen. You can challenge anyone, but it doesn't mean you should. You should always challenge someone who's at your own level of power. Not someone who you know you can certainly beat, but also not someone that is clearly way above your league. Never challenge a bug who's a dozen times weaker than you. You'll be seen as a coward if you do so, but also never refuse a challenge, or else the same applies." Matthias has given me the precious info on how this place worked. "Thank you, Matthias. I was really grateful for that." "No problem then. I'm glad I could help. And good luck with finding your opponent," he said, and was about to leave before I stopped him. "Wait, what about you? You've already found an opponent?" I was curious. Nope, I was about to go and look around, see who would be the most suited for me to brawl with. I advise you to do the same. See, around there he tried to fly away, but I caught one of his legs. My grip was strong, he couldn't move. What the hell? He was confused. Matthias, I challenge you, I said. I could barely contain my excitement when I did so. Seeing Matthias's eyes was priceless. Then, think this through. I don't want you to misunderstand me, but you have no chance against me. You've just given me the advice of never refusing a challenge, right? So, I looked at him with credence that I will defeat him. You are correct, he said, in a bit of a disappointed tone, and I let go of his leg. But I warn you, Dan, you're going to regret this. Trust me, he added, then left. And as Matthias left, I smiled. I was so happy to have met him, and I was even more joyous to have challenged him out of all the bugs that were here. If I cannot beat him, I do not deserve the title of a great knight, I remember telling myself, and so I awaited my upcoming brawl. A few hours have passed, and there were a lot more bugs who had arrived in the arena. I decided to take another shot at making a friend, as I had nothing better to do. I went around trying to start up a conversation with somebody, but just like my earlier attempts, everyone just answered to my questions with silence. Well, everyone except for one stag beetle, a beautiful stag beetle later known as Lucana the Sharp. Hello, I said, expecting silence. Well, hello, strong guy, she said. That made me chuckle. Well, you're a dung beetle. Your species is fascinating. She tilted her head and put her top leg in front of me, smiled and said, Hi, I'm Lucana. I take her leg, greeting her and saying, Dan, it's nice to finally meet someone here. Are you participating? She asked me. Yes, and you? Nah, I'm just here to observe. I will participate in the next one though. Who are you fighting? Some guy named Matthias, I nonchalantly answered. Oh, she seemed surprised. Wow, good luck. I was confused by this, so I asked, what do you mean, wow? Is he like a famous guy or something? What? You really don't know who he is? She thought I was joking. No, I genuinely do not know who he is. Can you tell me? Whoa, it's like you're not even from Beetlefield. He made it to the semi-finals last time. One of my brothers defeated him. Barely, Lucana told me. Oh, the semi-finals. He's quite strong then, isn't he? Wait, did you say one of your brothers defeated him? This caught my attention. Yep. He died fighting Gozara. May he forever rest in peace. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Lucana. My condolences. It's okay. I wasn't really close to neither of them anyways. Besides, I should be the one giving you condolences, then. You've lost your father there. I have many, many brothers and sisters, but only one father. And I heard that you were his only child. I can't even imagine the pain you went through then, Lucana said in a solicitous tone. Thank you. I did not know how to react to this. Nobody except for King Stagiron has even spoken to me about this. A few minutes have passed, and to break the uncomfortable silence, I decided to change the subject. Wait, you say you have many brothers and sisters. Does that mean that you are the king's daughter? Yes, I am, Lucana confirmed. Hearing this, I jokingly bowed and said, Well, I apologize for my poor manners, your Heightleness. As I said that, I took her top right leg and kissed it. Oh, now you're a gentle bug all of a sudden, huh? She smiled. Yes, your majesty. Wait, if Staggeron is the father of so many stag beetles, the look on my face changed as I realize. And he's like 1,000 seasons old or something. Does it mean that some of your older sisters are also the mothers of some of you? Doesn't it mean that Staggeron does it with his own children? Well, I mean, when you put it like that, it does sound weird. But yeah, pretty much, Lucana says, then quickly adds, but if you think that way, isn't it a much weirder thing for Antil or Hornest? I mean, they all technically do that with their mother, right? Yeah, I guess you're right. While we're at the topic of ants, I looked left and right, then came closer to Lacana and asked, is it true about Staggeron and Antlantia? It was a rumor I heard from a few of Staggeron's guards on one of my many trips to the Staggeron's castle. So, you do not know about the famous warriors, but you do know about the affair my father had with that old ant lady? You're an interesting fella then, Lucana laughed. So it is true, I yell and raise four of my legs to over-exaggerate my reaction. This made her laugh even more. You're silly. Say, do you think I can defeat him? Motheus, I mean, I ask after she stops laughing. She thinks for a few seconds before saying, I don't know. Do you think so? Please, your majesty. As you have noticed, I am a dung beetle. I can lift 1,000, no, 10, no, 100,000 times my weight, I sarcastically say and flex. Whoa, careful with those muscles, big guy. If you flex too hard, you'll make the whole Castanean tree fall down, she teased me. Well, if it falls, I will just lift it up again. Right, she nodded her head and we burst out laughing. Say, princess, when I manage to beat that butterfly Motheus, would you be willing to go get a drink with me? You know, to celebrate? I decided to shoot my shot and ask her out. She slowly rolled her eyes, then looked back at me. I'll think about it. She winked at me, turned around and left, but not before adding, see you later then. I couldn't help but smile, as I thought about where to take her after my fight. But what I should have been thinking instead was, how the hell do I win the fight? And so, the fights started. My fight was third in order, so as soon as the first fight started, I started warming up. After a few minutes of the loud cheering of the crowd, I heard the announcer say, and with that powerful bite, Herculeus advances to the next round. This, ladies and gentlebugs, marks the end of the first battle in this ultimate showdown. I decided to go and watch the second fight, as I had warmed up enough. I made my way to the spot from which I could see the fight clearly, but I would also be able to quickly get inside the arena when it is my turn. And now, on my right side, you have the incredible fighter from afar known as Nihil the Assassin. A very young wasp who somehow managed to find his way to Castana just a few days ago. The announcer pointed at the wasp. Nihil, an assassin wasp, a species that had never before been seen in Castana, came from afar to Castana for the sole purpose of participating in the showdown. I later found out that at the time he was only a few weeks old, and that he had paid serious trow to the announcer so that he hypes him up as some kind of an incredible fighter, when, in reality, the only thing that he had that other bugs did not have was his deadly poison. Nobody knows what his goal was at the time, as he was a brand new species that had entered Castana, something that was a very rare occurrence. He later became the Wasp Queen's personal assassin, and I heard that now he has 10 sons with the current queen, Hornetta. I am telling you all this because Nihil will later play a very important role in this story. My guess was that his plan for the showdown was to showcase his deadly poison in action so that somebody would hire him. Too bad that his very first opponent was none other than, and on my left side we also have a newcomer, a diabolical ironclad beetle. Diablo! Diablo and Nihil made their ways into the arena, and the fight began. Nihil struck immediately. He flew high up in the sky and then rushed down, attempting to sting Diablo. But Diablo's hard shell was too sturdy for Nihil's stinger to pierce through. Nihil did not expect such a thing to happen, and as he was deflected, he fell to the ground. Diablo was quick to react to this opportunity. He grabbed the young Nihil and threw him to the other side of the arena. Nihil hit his head on one of the arena's walls and he lost consciousness. Looks like the incredible Nihil is not so incredible after all, huh? Diablo, the heavy ironclad beetle, defeats the assassin wasp with ease. This was my first of many times witnessing the impenetrable shell Diablo had. Ironclad beetles, truly astonishing bugs. Shortly after that, I made my way to the arena. Before I entered it, I saw her, Lucana. She was right there in the first row in the crowd. She noticed me and waved at me. I needed to do this. I had to win. I had to impress her. Ladies and gentlebugs, on my right side we have a newcomer who was brave or foolish enough to challenge Motas the Shiny. Everybody, clap for the brave Dan. I entered the arena as I heard the announcer mention my name. I heard the clapping and cheering of hundreds of spectators. I feel the incredible feeling of empowerment growing with each step I took, with each clap I heard. This was the best feeling in the world, I was certain. And now, you know him, you know him. On my left, meet Motas the Shiny. The announcer shrieked as loudly as he could, and the crowd went mad over hearing Motas making an appearance. I didn't know how popular he was until this moment. The moment when he, with his shiny, beautiful wings, slowly emerged from the sky, posing. I couldn't help but bathe at the sight of his beauty. It was blinding. I was disoriented for a few moments by this, but I quickly came to my senses. Since Motas took his time to slowly come down from the sky, I decided to throw a quick look at Lucana of the crowd, and she, like everyone else, stared at Motas in amusement and excitement. I do not know why, but this made me angry. Furious even. I wanted her to look at me that way. I later found out that this was the feeling known as jealousy. A very bad feeling to have, a very evil feeling. A feeling that would lead to many troubles and mistakes. But at that moment, all I knew was that this new feeling, this new emotion drove me. It drove me to want victory more than anything else. I put up my charging pose and I was ready to charge at my full speed at Motas as soon as he landed. Motas noticed me, but decided to land anyway. And as he put his wings on the ground, I charged. I rushed at him, ready to hit him with everything I got. Just as I was about to hit him, just as my horn was about to meet Motas's chest, Motas suddenly spread his wings and flew upwards. Just enough for me to miss him and hit the wall behind him. The wall turned to 100 small pieces as soon as I came in contact with it. You're strong, Dan, Motas says to me, but you lack something really important. I take the biggest piece of the wall, spin and throw it with all my might at the young moth, yelling, Shut up! Motas avoided the giant rock with ease, and the piece of the wall made it all the way to the crowd on the other side of the arena. The crowd thankfully avoided the rock, but just barely. I tried catching the moth by his wings or legs, but he evaded each of my attempts until he decided to catch me himself. He caught me with all 6 of his legs by my horn. He caught me and started rushing up in the sky, higher and higher until we reached above the very top seat of the arena. You lack experience. Moteas told me one of the most important lessons that I have ever learned. Let me go, I screamed, struggling. As you wish, he said. Then he started spinning in the air, building momentum before letting me go. I started falling down much faster than I had hoped for, and I made it to the ground in almost no time at all. I made it to the ground, hitting it with a force that felt like the whole Castanean tree fell on my head. Before I lost consciousness, I heard the announcer say, "Well, folks, looks like Moteas, the shiny, does it again." The last thing I saw was Lucana, looking at me, my vision too blurry for me to be able to make her facial expression out, but I was certain that she was disappointed. And if she wasn't, I for sure was. When I woke up, I decided to go home. I did not ask Lucana out. I did not win. I went home and spent a few days just thinking about the battle that I have had, thinking about the important lesson Moteas taught me. He was correct. I had the training, I had the power, the might, but I lacked the most important thing someone bearing the title of a great knight needs. I lacked experience. Diablo, later nicknamed Diablo the Heavy, won the Ultimate Showdown a few days later, and the one who fought him in the finals was none other than Moteas the Shiny himself. Diablo was too heavy for Moteas to lift, and also too sturdy for any attack to work on him. So it was only natural for Moteas to lose that night. But even though he lost, he was still chosen to be one of the new generation of the Great Knights. And just like that, Diablo the Heavy and Moteas the Shiny both became the new Great Knights. The crippled knight finished telling a part of his story. I'm sorry for your father, was the first sentence Antonio said when Dan paused telling the story. Thank you, young ant, Dan said. He died being a hero, something that I cannot call myself. What do you mean? You helped kill Ozara twice? Antonio tried to raise Dan's mood, but it did not work. Oh, kid, you have no idea, Dan said in a tired tone. My father, you mentioned my father, Hercules said. Yes, your father had indeed fought in the Ultimate Showdown. He too was defeated by Diablo. May they both rest in peace, Dan confirmed. Yes, may they rest in peace. Hercules looked down with a weird mix of emotions. So, the affair was true after all, Nathan whispered to himself. Well, do you have anything else to say or ask before I continue? Dan was curious. The trio of heroes thought for a few moments, then they all said no. All right then, I guess I'll continue. After I realized what Moteas told me, and after I've heard that he had become one of the new Great Knights, I knew that he was right. And I also knew that if I want to achieve my goal, I'll have to change some things. But there was one more thing on my mind, or should I said one more bug. Lucana. I couldn't stop thinking of her, but I knew I messed up. I knew I needed to move on, and I knew that I had to change my type of training. If I wanted to succeed in winning the next Ultimate Showdown, and I had just under 6 seasons to prepare. Battlefield had nothing more to offer me. Everything in it was just memories. Memories of my father, of Ozara, of the chaos, of Lucana. Memories I needed to take my mind off of. So I decided to move and search for bugs to spar with, to search for warriors like me who were preparing for the upcoming tournament. Now the question was where? Where to move to? Anthill? No. Ants were brave, but ultimately they were weak. The web pit? No, I did not like spiders. The hornest? No. Wasps were powerful, but not powerful enough. I saw nihil as proof. This left only one place, a place that would change the course of my life forever. I decided to move to the Montesian tribe. It was far from Beetlefield, and it was filled with the second most powerful family of bugs. Mantises. Second only to beetles, of course. Little did I know that, not too far away from the Montesian tribe, in the kingdom of Hornest, one young wasp had the exact same idea. A young wasp tired of its home. A young warrior who had the power, but also, like me, lacked experience. A young giant cicada wasp named Caesar decided to move to the Montesian tribe too, in order to prepare for the upcoming showdown by gaining the only thing he lacked, the very same thing I lacked, experience. And so it was inevitable that the two of us would meet there. And me meeting Caesar, well, it was the most important moment of my life. Perhaps the most important moment in the history of Castana.